the communication cycle: sender, message, transmission, receiver, and feedback. The communication cycle illustrates the journey of a message from its inception, its movement from the sender to the receiver, and then the receiver's response to the message back to the sender. So we're going to take a look at multiple different components that are used in communication, and essentially how we actually get a message from or idea from inside my head to another person, and then get communication about what that idea is and their opinion of it. So firstly, it all starts with the individual, okay? And the individual who is the sender. They have an idea and they need to create a message. Okay, so that's the first step. We've got a message in my head. How am I going to communicate this? And that how leads us to our next point, which is that of we need to encode the message. Okay, so the message can be spoken or use some sort of non-computer resource, such as a letter or a memo or some form of documentation to pass my idea onto another person. I might encode it in a non-computer way, but obviously we have many other computerized ways as well. Through using technology, the idea can be transformed into a digital message using a mobile phone, email message, or through a video conference. Okay, and then when we use technology, there's also transmission ways that data needs to be encoded to, that it needs to be put into data packets and put into a wavelength so that that message can be encoded into a format that can be sent through the internet or through a network. But essentially, we need to encode the message into a format that is sent that someone can understand. So let's say my person here, they're going to put their message and they're going to communicate with someone that is not in the room. Thus, they'll need to use technology. They're going to use their mobile phone, because a mobile phone, we can use the internet, we can use social media on it, we can use telecommunications or SMS to communicate my message. Mobile phones are fantastic for encoding a message or idea into many different formats. So I've encoded my message into a form that it could be understood by another person. I now need to transmit that message. Okay, so transmission is the message being transmitted from the sender to the receiver. Now, I'm using technology in my scenario, but transmission could simply be face to face. I'm talking to the person next to me. Me speaking with my voice is transmitting that message. Okay, but it could be through sending physical documentation, such as a letter to another person, or once again, technology through the use of networks, internet, and telecommunication networks. Okay, that can also be used to carry the message from the sender to the receiver. Once it is transmitted, then hopefully the receiver is going to get it. The receiver gets it and they decode the message through either reading it or listening to it or watching it. They are experiencing the message that the sender put together, and then in their brain they are interpreting its meaning. What is the idea that the sender is trying to tell me? Okay, and they're getting an understanding of it. All right, so they decode that message into their own understanding. Now, they've heard the sender's message through whatever format they put it into. What the receiver does now is they reply back, and that's how communication takes place. It's two-way. So they give their feedback, their response to the message. Depending on how the message was received, the receiver might respond using the same method. So in this case, our receiver is using their mobile phone as well. Okay, or it could be a situation if it's spoken to them, they'll speak back. If it was sent to them as an email, they'll email their feedback as well. But they could also just pick another medium which suits them. Okay, it might have been emailed to them. They might wait and think about what the actual message was that was sent to them, and then next time they see the sender, they might give their feedback verbally when they do see them face to face. So there are no rules in how feedback mediums need to take place, but there is etiquette, and we try to follow that when doing it, especially in a workplace. There is more protocols about communication there, but essentially they pick the format they want to give the feedback in as well, just as the sender decided how they're initially going to send the message. The feedback is then sent back to the original sender, and that's the communication. The sender gave their idea, the receiver is giving the feedback on their idea, and then that may continue, and that's why it's a cycle. They both might talk about the idea, transmission going both ways, okay, until the idea is perfected, and then they might put that idea into practice. But in summary, essentially, the sender, they send their message to the receiver, and the receiver gives their feedback on the message. That's what we're trying to illustrate here. The message feedback cycle that allows for communication to take place. So I hope this has given you an understanding of the communication cycle and how essentially senders have an idea. They need to encode it into a message that someone can understand. They then transmit that message to the receiver. The receiver then decodes that message. They read through it, they listen to it, they watch it, depending on the format that it was given to them. And then ultimately they give their feedback back to the sender, allowing for communication to take place.